I'm gonna do that regardless.
You gonna do that regardless, all right. That's his way of being sworn in. What's up with Lil Durk, man? Holla at us, you good?
Yeah, I'm just chilling, man, just vibe. You know I had to pull up.
Just when Lil Durk was trying to move on from his past, his world has taken a sharp turn, thrusting him back into the chaos of it. Durk, who is well known for rising from poverty to fame, has recently been embroiled in a torturous battle due to legal issues and federal allegations. He is facing the fact that he may never really be free of past disputes and affiliations while incarcerated in one of the worst prisons in the nation. In this synopsis, we explore Lil Durk's recent struggles and his time behind bars, a tale of fortitude, decisions, and the difficult reality of moving on from the past. Durk seemed to be starting a fresh chapter in his life only a few months ago. He said on Instagram that he was determined to change and abandon the way of life that had previously characterized him. He said, "Don't label me as anything outside of a man, a father, and 1000% Muslim," in his message, urging others to see him as such. "If you follow me as a brother, friend, or icon, follow me to my new chapter," he said, urging his family, friends, and admirers to accompany him on this voyage. It was a powerful declaration of change, indicating that he was done living on the streets and was now concentrating on his profession, family, and religion. For many, Durk's use of his position to motivate others and demonstrate that change was achievable marked a sea shift. But the past had other ideas, even with his best efforts. For the rapper, everything seemed to fall apart on October 24th. It was that day when Durk learned that 5 of his close friends had been detained the day before. He was alarmed by this trend, which meant that his history was coming up to him faster than he had expected. His companion's incarceration served as a reminder of the connections and unsolved issues he was finding it difficult to break. After hearing the news, Durk ran quickly to escape the approaching storm. In an attempt to escape the worsening circumstances, he purchased 2 one-way tickets to Dubai and Switzerland. He made the choice at the last minute, which was indicative of the strain and haste he felt to shield himself from the repercussions of his previous associations. But federal officials stepped in and stopped him from getting on either aircraft. He had no option but to face the repercussions once his escape plot was foiled. It was obvious that getting off the streets would be much more difficult than he had anticipated. Lil Durk is now battling life in a harsh, merciless setting while incarcerated. He is imprisoned in one of the most severe prisons in the nation, where he is surrounded by tension, aggression, and the continual fear of harm. This new reality is a huge shock to someone used to a life of freedom and creative expression. In addition to the physical difficulties he experiences in prison, he also has to deal with the reality of the world he believed he had left behind and the memory of his previous decisions. He is targeted because of his connections and reputation, and he must deal with these dangers every day, in addition to the psychological effects of being apart from his loved ones. For Durk, the fight goes beyond the confines of the prison. His predicament is further worsened by his unresolved beefs and former affiliations, which still haunt him. He is aware that his former life has followed. Lil Durk's latest Instagram post has gained additional significance in light of the circumstances surrounding his detention. His honest statement of faith and will to reform served as a reminder of how difficult it may be to completely distance oneself from a complicated history like his. As he awaits his next court appearance, Durk is probably coming to the realization that making changes in one's life requires more than simply making promises. It also entails facing the ingrained relationships and effects that persist even after one makes an effort to distance themselves. Followed him into this new one, and he is constantly reminded of the negative effects that fame, prestige, and previous loyalties may have. Durk is now struggling with the challenging work of breaking old habits and creating a new way ahead that avoids the risky entanglements of his former life, as he formerly flourished in a lifestyle that combined street culture with his music. Beyond his own hardships, Durk's case highlights the more general problem of how challenging it may be for people from terrible circumstances to break free from the impact of their history. Many people who have attempted to escape a life characterized by violence, poverty, and difficult choices may relate to his narrative. Fans were moved by Durk's metamorphosis because they recognized in him a person who could overcome his situation and turn into a resilient and hopeful role model. However, his recent experiences highlight how difficult it may be to get beyond one's past, particularly when old disputes and connections don't go away. Lil Durk's path serves as a reminder of the perseverance needed to bring about long-lasting change as he deals with his present difficulties. These challenges haven't taken away his desire to be seen as a man, a parent, and a devout Muslim. Instead, it draws attention to how challenging it is to sustain such dedication in a society that often drags individuals back into recurring conflict cycles. In spite of these obstacles, Durk's will to keep going will probably continue to inspire those who follow him, but it also serves as a depressing reminder of how much the past can affect the present. Ultimately, Lil Durk's tale is far from over. It remains to be seen whether he overcomes these challenges or turns into just another cautionary story. But his readiness to openly discuss his want for change and his present struggles shows that he is a guy torn between two worlds who is trying to reconcile one and move on from the other. His continuous struggle to take back his life on his own terms will probably strike a chord with many people who know how hard it is to really move on from the past. Raised warning signs immediately. The FBI became involved after U.S. Customs and Border Protection flagged the flights. It turned out that the commercial flights were a ruse. Durk had actually planned for a private jet to depart Miami and travel directly to Italy in the hopes of eluding the authorities, but it didn't work out. On the evening of October 24th, just 1 hour before the jet was scheduled to take off, FBI agents closed in and arrested him at the main jail houses the most well-known and notorious inmates, so it's likely that Durk is also there. Inside Broward, they don't care who you are or how well-known you are. It's all about the weight of your charges. No VIP treatment, no exceptions. Broward County is so large that they had to divide it into 4 sections in order to manage it all. For someone used to a completely different way of life, Durk is playing by the same strict rules as everyone else and isn't receiving any preferential treatment here. Miami area airport at around 8 p.m. Durk was charged with murder for hire and taken immediately to Broward County Jail, where he is being held without bond. From what we've heard, he is not enjoying his stay there. For those who are unaware, Broward County Jail is the main jail in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and although he didn't catch this charge there, they picked him up there, so that's where he is being held. Broward has a reputation for having harsh conditions, and believe me, it's difficult. The grim new truth is that security varies daily based on where you are, but at the main prison, there is complete lockdown. Optimal Security, the main prison in Broward, is like an 8-story fortress with thousands of cameras observing every action. It's not only the cameras keeping prisoners on lock. Broward is notorious for its harsh circumstances and has a history of guards. If Durk thought he may get a break in here, he's in for another surprise. The guards aren't the only problem. Consider the instance of Kevin Desire, a prisoner who became entangled with staff during a mental health crisis and was reportedly assaulted so severely that he was put in a vegetative condition before passing suddenly. Concerns about medical negligence and harsh treatment have fueled calls for change at the Broward County Jail, which has been in the news for a startling number of inmate fatalities in recent years, minus 21 deaths in less than 3 years. Headlines: Joseph Kirk, a 34-year-old prisoner who passed away in the facility's hospital, was one of the examples that particularly affected the Broward Public Defender's Office, which has even asked for outside scrutiny in an effort to reveal what they characterize as a culture and atmosphere of neglect. Kirk's death, like that of so many others, aroused serious concerns about the quality of medical care provided at the jail's detox unit, where he was imprisoned on a misdemeanor. The Public Defender's Office speculates that Kirk may have died as a result of problems with detox procedures or even drugs that were smuggled into the facility, a sobering reminder of the system's flaws. The county sheriff even acknowledged that Broward lacked the resources to adequately care for those who needed it most, which is why the county recently approved a $1 million plan to improve inmate mental health and substance abuse services. However, the sheriff himself has stated that $1 million won't do much, estimating that Broward's jails would require roughly $122 billion over the next 2. The actual surprise is that Durk is looking at the same difficult circumstances and vulnerabilities that have made Broward renowned, since it has taken decades to get things back on track. And let's face it, that type of money isn't exactly flowing in. Durk isn't the only well-known hip-hop artist dealing with this issue. Melly's actual name, Jamal Demons, has been sitting at Broward for years, facing double murder charges that have had the whole industry buzzing from day one back in 2018. Killings of 2 close companions, Christopher Thomas Jr., also known as YNW Juvie, and Anthony Williams, also known as YNW Sack Chaser. The event occurred on the evening purchased that narrative. In his song Murder on My Mind, NW purportedly discussed the occurrence. Many people think that phrases like "I didn't even mean to shoot him, he just caught me by surprise, and I reloaded my pistol, cocked it back, and shot him twice" demonstrate his participation. Prosecutors think that YNW, since his arrest in 2019, Melly's case has been nothing short of tumultuous. His first trial began in 2023, but it ended in a mistrial when the jury was unable to reach a verdict. Melly is reportedly connected to the Bloods gang, who murdered his buddies over M and creative credit. Of October 26, 2018, when Melly and his buddies got together for a late-night recording session. Following the session, Melly fired Chaser Juvie in Cortland. The narrative is crazy. Juvie and Sack Chaser were discovered dead corpses covered with gunfire on October 27th, mere hours after Henry N.W. Borland and he were leaving the studio together. Police weren't informed by Melly and Borland that it was a drive-by shooting. His retrial is now scheduled for September 2025, but with each delay, Melly is locked in Broward with no end in sight and is taking a toll. The verdict sent him right into a retrial, and there have been several delays since then due to evidentiary disputes, appeals, motions, and everything else. Because of the harsh circumstances at Broward, Melly even sued the Broward Sheriff's Office to demand her immediate release. According to his lawyer, Michael Pitti Jr., Melly has been kept in solitary confinement for more than 3 years without any, in addition to claiming that his treatment violates several constitutional rights, including the First, Fifth, Sixth, Eighth, and 14th Amendments. The lawsuit goes deeper. It describes an incident in April 2022 in which another prisoner falsely accused Melly of plotting an escape, which resulted in a complete shakedown of his cell and additional restrictions on his communication. The petition is calling for Melly's immediate release, highlighting the abusive and unconstitutional conditions. To make matters worse, he has been detained, despite Melly's repeated attempts. A taste of the same harsh treatment that has kept Melly fighting for basic rights. Perhaps Durk is beginning to feel the same pressure now as well. Broward doesn't care if you're famous or forgotten. Not only Durk and Melly have faced Broward's dark side. In May 2024, Kingston and his mother, Janice Turner, were accused of a fraud scheme worth over $1 million, which included luxury jewelry, a Cadillac Escalade, high-end furniture, and other items. Kingston, who is known for his catchy hits and laid-back vibe, ended up behind bars earlier this year on serious fraud charges. The works Kingston was apprehended by law enforcement while performing at Fort Irwin, an Army base within California, a few months later in July. A Miami grand jury formally indicted Kingston and his mother on federal charges of 1 count of conspiracy to commit wire fraud and 5 counts of wire fraud each. Prosecutors claimed that they had defrauded sellers of luxury goods, jewelry, and high-end cars by claiming that they had paid through wire transfers when, in fact, no money had ever moved. Meanwhile, his mother was killed in a SWAT raid at Kingston's rented competitor rapper's predicament. To those who are unaware, let me explain OTF, or Only the Family, to you. It is more than just a hip-hop group. It is Durk's first family movement, which he began in 2010. It began with a close-knit group of friends who grew up together in Chicago's fierce drill music scene where loyalty is paramount. OTF was all about supporting one another. Durk founded it on a foundation of common aspirations and street survival, and throughout the years, OTF has established a solid reputation due to mansion in Fort Lauderdale. Broward's authorities weren't holding back. The stakes are high. If found guilty, each of them faces up to 20 years in prison on each count. After being imprisoned in Broward for a while, Kingston posted a $100,000 bond using his home mortgage as collateral. After he was released, he took to social media to express his gratitude to God, his family, friends, and his legal team, saying, "It's great to be home." It was evident that life behind bars wasn't what he was used to, and he was given a reality check that demonstrated just how harsh Durk's soul respite is. That he will likely be transferred to California, the scene of his alleged crime, in the upcoming weeks. But let's not forget that Durk is facing a serious federal case. If prosecutors present a strong case, he could face life in prison or, depending on the charges, the death penalty. Based on what we're seeing, the feds aren't playing around with him. The federal case against Lil Durk and Lil Durk is as severe as it gets. According to the prosecution, he and his OTF team planned a whole scheme to remove his. In addition to their music, OTF's reputation as a crew founded on street credibility, unity, and loyalty was enhanced by their affiliation with the Black Disciples, a well-known Chicago street gang with roots dating back to the 1960s. The Black Disciples are deeply ingrained in the city's drill culture, and their influence extends from the streets to the music, according to prosecutors. In order to settle the score, Durk exploited this allegiance, but on the evening that OTF set out to take down everything went bad, Rondo. Things didn't go as planned. Instead of targeting Rondo, the bullets reached his 24-year-old cousin Salva Robinson, who is known as El Pap on the streets. Here's the whole tale. The trial is scheduled on August 18, 2021. On the same day that Durk began organizing, he reportedly received information that Quando Rondo was in town and posted up at a hotel in Los Angeles, calling on 5 members of his team to take care of the task. London Grant, Asa Houston's DeAndre Wilson, Kayvon David Lindsay, and Keith Jones. The feds didn't merely rely on travel records, they dug deeper. Prosecutors claim they pulled information directly from Durk's iCloud, where he had warned his crew not to book anything under his name. Despite the warning, they booked the flights using a credit card connected to Durk and OTF. Later that day, DeAndre, Keith David, Asa, and a 5th unnamed suspect flew out from Chicago to San Diego, from where they drove up to Los Angeles, completely funded by Lil Durk himself. What do they need to link Durk to each component of the strategy? Following their arrival in Louisiana, the team connected with Kyon Grant, a senior OTF official who arrived in a private plane. According to court documents, Grant apparently had everything prepared and waiting and had booked hotel rooms, purchased 2 luxury automobiles that were ideal for maintaining a low profile, and 4 ski masks, but he didn't stop there. Jones Lindsay reportedly received firearms from Grant, including one that was modified into a fully automatic machine gun and another that was unidentified. The following day, Durk's crew began tracking Q's every move. Quando was in town with his cousin LPB, attending events, making rounds, and establishing his reputation in the music industry. However, as he and LPB drove through Los Angeles in that black Cadillac Escalade, LPAB was standing outside the Escalade when the automatic weapons were pulled and gunfire burst out. Prosecutors are accusing Rondo of a planned execution, but he miraculously managed to escape unharmed. Following the incident, Key's heartbreaking response was recorded on tape as police removed his deceased companion from the vehicle. Without any delay, Durk's team regrouped in an in-and-out to finalize payment arrangements with Con Grant, sure that they had successfully completed their assignment. Unaware that a white car was following them through the city streets, Durk's crew stayed close to Jing Kwandu and LPAB as they stopped at various locations throughout the city, first at a dispensary, then a West Hollywood clothes store, and lastly pulled into a gas station across from the Beverly Center. According to the indictments, the surveillance footage shows Grant's rented BMW following Rondo's Cadillac at each stop, getting close enough to monitor but not close enough to alert them. Eventually, Key's car pulled into a gas station to fill up, and by that point, everything was set up. Asa parked their rented car behind the station, but Jones, Lindsay, and the unidentified accomplice were in the ideal position, ready for what was about to. On their way back to San Diego, they boarded a plane and headed back to Chicago as if nothing had happened, but history has a way of catching up. On October 23, 2024, years after that night, the 5OTF members were arrested in Chicago. Durk attempted to flee only after their arrest, but he was unaware that one of his own crew members had been watching him and providing the feds with information throughout the entire time through leaked court documents. On the inside, an informant known as OTF Jam had said to have been hooked up for years, providing government investigators with direct access to evidence. According to reports, Jam was freed in 2022 after serving 12 years for attempted murder, but instead of remaining silent, he turned on the federal authorities and gave them information that connected Durk to the murder. For many people's higher plan, Jam and Durk were friends, and when Jam was serving a 12-year sentence for attempted murder, Durk had supported him when it counted most. His treachery by snitching cuts deep. Durk took the initiative and created Jam's necessities were met, his legal bills were paid. He was given a home and a vehicle, and he even dropped over $50,000 in cash to keep him afloat. You understand what I mean when I say that he doesn't need to beg __. We're not going to get into all of that, but he made sure to make it possible for me to be straight. And it didn't end there. Durk was constantly hyping Jam up on live streams to show public support for his guy. So tell them, count this much, he said he gave you $50, bro. What's happening? J Jam's treachery was just one aspect of the storm Durk faced as the legal hits continued to come in on November 8th, 2024. But you know it's insane up there with all this sneak diss and online games and all this money doing something like that. He was first charged with using interstate facilities to commit murder, but federal prosecutors increased the pressure by filing additional accusations against him, with the addition of one count for conspiracy and another for utilizing, carrying, and discharging for hire has now expanded to 3 charges, firearms including a machine gun, in connection with a violent crime that resulted in death. With these new charges, Durk's battle has become much more difficult, but one question remains: why did Lil Durk allegedly target Kwijo in the first place? Prosecutors claim that Lil Durk wanted Kwijo dead. The answer is King Von, Durk's close friend. For those who don't know, the two grew close in the heart of the Chicago streets. Living in the notorious O Block, one of Chicago's most violent neighborhoods characterized by violence and ongoing loss, like Durk, Von understood what it meant to lose friends to the streets and to have run-ins with the law, which is what initially brought them together. Growing up in Inglewood on the South Side, an area known for its high crime and gang activity, King Val faced hardships most people wouldn't survive. He's from the ancient block. Alright, I'm saying that should speak for itself, but know that he's real, that his music is real, and that I'm saying that it's my brother's twin. Then, in 2020, tragedy struck when King Val was shot dead, leaving Durk devastated. It is said that Durk placed the blame directly on Kwandu. The events leading up to Von's death reportedly began with a feud between Von and an NBA youngboy, which eventually led to a deadly chain of events that ultimately led to Von's death. Watching intently. A few seconds into the altercation, a gunshot was heard a few feet away, and the shooter was later identified as L. Tim fired several bullets as he came out from behind the vehicle. Von was struck 3 or 4 times, and his manager was also shot in the leg. V passed just a few hours later, and ever since that evening, many died. According to court documents, OTF Jam informed investigators that Durk allegedly used coded language to place a bounty on Quando Rondo following Von's death, calling out to anyone who would be willing to take on the job. Some claim that this wasn't Durk's first attempt, and rumors have it that he may have attempted to get at Quando even before the 2021 incident. One such attempt is said to have occurred on May 3, 2021, that evening, right after a performance at the Vibe. Around 3:20 a.m., Quando Rondo and his entourage stopped by a convenience store in nearby Blackshack. While they were parked in the lot, gunfire broke out from across the highway. While he was unharmed, one of his crew members was not so fortunate, receiving a bullet wound to the hand and requiring treatment at a nearby hospital. By the time police arrived, Quando had already left the scene, even though the shooters were never identified. Many people theorized that Durk was involved, allegedly showing Kwandu attempted to contact Durk to resolve the matter, but he swiftly removed it from Instagram, claiming that the screenshots were phony and that there was no internet __. I'm not DMing anyone right now, but with the weight of these charges, it's difficult to see a quick way out. I'm not sure if Young Thug can escape his own bizarre situation, but let's face it, things are looking bleak and he might have to deal with those difficult circumstances for much longer than anyone anticipated. Thank you for viewing. To see more related content, click on one of the boxes that is playing on your screen.